Starter motor replacement, 4-cylinder Dodge Journey. What we're dealing with is just removing some of the fasteners. There's only 2 fasteners that are holding it in. I had to remove the air intake, air filter, to give myself some room. Right now I'm just trying to loosen off the fasteners. They're very long bolts. These bolts actually thread through the starter, and it's not like a typical old Chev where the bolts actually go through the starter motor and into the block. Well, with this it actually is vice versa. So they're very long. I'm just working on the first one here. Okay, so to really grab proper access to the starter, technically the intake manifold should be removed. Especially if you got big mitts like I do, you're going to find it very difficult to connect not only your main power lead to your starter, but there's also a pigtail here. You want to be careful with this guy because it gets corroded, and it is fairly green with corrosion. So if you have yourself a wire brush handy, you're definitely going to want to clean him up as well. And like I say, you'll probably be able to get the starter out of there without removing the intake manifold. The problem is trying to get the starter motor back into place, which is going to be a series of problems for you. So you will need a new $4 intake manifold gasket. You're going to have to clean all this up. Thankfully, it's kind of like rubber, really. It just sits in a groove in the manifold, and I mean, there's really nothing to it. It's not the cork style, it's just more of a rubber, so it's not that difficult to change, especially seeing as how you're dealing with a newer vehicle. You'll want to take some cleaner and just clean this bit of varnish off. See what I mean? I want to get all that off, but I mean, that's mediocre work. 5-10 minutes on that, you'll be all right. So it's not horrible. If you were to take this to a garage, they'd probably charge you about $500 to do all this, because your fuel line has to be separated, which is over here. Fuel injector, wire harness. Okay. Thankfully, you can't mix any of these up. They are strategically placed like that for a reason, so nobody can get them backwards and mess up fuel injection timing. So anyway, we'll go ahead and install our new starter motor. This is a Delco starter motor, not that it matters. A Delco product in a Chrysler automobile. Who would have thought? Here's that little wire I was discussing about earlier that connects to the solenoid of our starter. We're going to want to make sure that's cleaned up well. It was definitely corroded, and it just connects just right over here. It's a tight squeeze. Just like so. Now, if you by chance run into a problem like what I did with corroded terminals, you can go out and buy yourself some of these battery lug terminals. And what we can do is, without shortening this too much, because there's not a lot of lead here, we can purchase a package of these with what I got going on here, 5/16 eyelet. And I have bigger ones too, which I didn't need. The gauge of wire is very thick, but this particular lug will actually go on there. And I'll be able to crimp it nicely. I'm just using one lug instead. This one here is big enough that I could actually put both of them in there. So when I go to crimp it, it's going to be nice and tight for sure. Should actually shrink tube this. I don't have shrink tubing big enough. I mean, if you have shrink tubing that will actually go over all this, wouldn't hurt. I mean, I'm going to electrical tape this real good, and then I'm going to take some of this stuff, this plastic casing wire protector stuff, and I'm just going to slide it over top of this, and it'll be as good as gold, really. I am going to definitely electrical tape this nice and tight, get a nice maybe 2 or 3 layers on there after I crimp this. Be a wise idea if you did too, because nothing sucks more than leaving the Walmart parking lot and your car won't start. 9 times out of 10 it could start as this, as the culprit. Now for the protective coating to go over top of this, I'll put a piece over here and we'll go ahead and connect our starter mount. Okay, so next for the gasket, went ahead and cleaned the mating surface. And we'll go ahead and install our new one. Let's go in the box, Velcro gasket. I'll show you what the old one looks like, because I'm not sure if I really got a good visual on that for you guys or not. It's, like I say, a very cheap part. It just sits in those grooves there. And that's your gasket. And here's our new one. The difference is this one is brown, and the Chrysler one would have been a brownish color. Velcro's blue. Go figure. And just very lightly remove from the box. Insert in the grooves. And you're ready set. Alright, with that done, we can go install our intake plenum. Route all our hoses. Double check and make sure all our connections are, well, we'll seal the deal with our connections, make sure that's all good. I went ahead and really went at this. I still have to put this cover on. Okay, next I'll go ahead and install our intake plenum. A little bit of residual fuel leaking from the fuel rail. That's okay. This dipstick is going to have to come out because it's in my way. Set that in there. Now go ahead and install the plugs and wire harnesses that you may have unclipped during this. I'll save the fuel line for last. And any vacuum hoses, your fuel injectors, make sure those are all clipped in properly. And push the red tab down to ensure that the pigtail does not become loosened off. A simple click will do it. Just like so. Now the injectors are plugged into the fuel rail. It has our wire harness. And that is also attached. Okay. Alright, so getting there with it. Just looking over the final few things. We need our air intake duct all tightened back up. I'll have to climb under the car. We'll do that next. I'm not going to run it without it, of course. It will make the car kind of idle rough without that, so I'll go ahead and install that and finalize this whole project. And start on replacing the battery.